Chat. So apparently EA just killed Anthem. That's the most recent thing. And then apparently Stop Killing Games won, but then like, like it basically won. It got like a lot of signatures and everything like that. So I'm really happy that that is actually happening. I'm pretty proud on that. So I'm happy. I'm proud of you gamers. I'm proud of you guys to actually stop killing games. Yeah, it was pretty much dead on arrival though. My goat Anthem. Let's talk about it. Let's go talk about it, shall we?
Sometimes the timing of a story is so.
It's funny how they got the signatures and everything like that for Stop Killing Games, and then Anthem they just pulled the plug on Anthem.
Perfect that it just makes you think, yeah, we must live in a simulation because this just feels like a storyline that someone wrote. So here's the deal. Our video on Stop Killing Games went live, and then a few hours after that, the petition crossed 1 million signatures. And all across the internet, people were celebrating, right? It seemed like a big...
It could have been a cool game, but...
victory, obviously, it hasn't actually went through yet, but seemingly so many people were refreshing the petition site that it actually crashed. Not surprising, the whole internet.
Damn, the whole
interested.
website actually crashed itself.
Video coming that actually is digging into what's next and what you can expect, but can't actually finish that video now. The reason why is just a few hours after that, well, we got news that does frame all of this quite well. You see, this petition cannot be retroactive. It can't fix the current state of the video.
I heard also apparently either what was it? It was either politicians or either certain politicians or certain companies or so were trying not to approve of this whatsoever. They're trying to argue against it. They're basically trying to do the pirate software maneuver and misunderstanding the actual thing about Stop Killing Games. That's literally on the first line or so for Stop Killing Games. They're basically doing a pirate software. I don't remember exactly who it was that said it. Either someone from the gaming companies or one of the politicians. So I'm not too sure on it. So thank you for the follow. Welcome. Yeah, it's an EU branch of video games legislation. Oh, is that literally what it is? Okay, yeah, I remember hearing it from somewhere. That's the only reason why.
Video game market.
Hey, Koishi.
And that means that it cannot save Anthem, because yes, that's the news that we got. Anthem is dead. January 12th, 2026, just before Anthem's 7th birthday, that is the date when BioWare's live service experiment will have its servers switched off forever, and that'll be it. Of course, some people already assumed or thought that the servers were down, but no, they're not, and they're still live.
That's crazy that this game has been alive for that long, to be honest.
For about 180 days, so you can go do your normal.
Also, I want to bring up a history thing real quick. I don't know how many of you guys played on console or so, but when this game came out, at least the demo, either the demo or the full release of this game bricked consoles. Straight up, this game specifically murdered PS4s back then. There was news or so that this game specifically, either the demo of this game, it overheated the console and completely fucked it. If you guys didn't know about that, that's what happened. It was so intensive, it was so unwell optimized that literally the console itself would brick itself. Just letting you guys know on a tidbit history on that. I wasn't aware of that. Yep. Thank God I didn't care about this game. Yeah, I didn't play it. I did not play it whatsoever. I had a weird 2 cents or something. I was like, there's something feels off about this game. And then after a couple weeks or a couple days later or so, news outlet break out or so that this game started bricking consoles, and I was just like
Off Iron Man stuff over there. and at that point, it will be gone forever. Now, the game is actually delisted from stores right now. It'll vanish from EA's subscription service.
Oh, it's
August
delisted?
15th. As for microtransactions, they're already disabled, but you can spend your premium currency before the shutdown, and then it will shut down, and that will be that. There will be no more Anthem.
Damn, so Anthem is now a coaster now. Whoever has the physical version of the actual game itself, it's literally just a
Know
coaster.
your fucking place, trash.
But there is actually one more thing, a bit of a telling thing given the state of the industry right now. EA clearly knows the reputation, so they've added in this cheery note to their announcement, which is just this little quote. No, the sunsetting of Anthem has not led to any layoffs. So clearly that's a slice of PR they wanted to manage. There's one thing that keeps coming up in this channel that I think we all hate, and it's whenever a company rams tech down our throat to serve their purposes. Here, I've got the opposite. This is the note pin from Plod, and they're today's sponsor. And here's the TLDR.
Sponsor?
Right? It's a gorgeous piece of hardware plus their AI and software, and it helps me actually use technology less. And you'll even pay less for it with my code on their Prime Day sale. So here's the deal, right? I take a lot of notes, a lot of ideas for this channel, a lot of lore for the Warcraft channel, and Plod actually helps me do that so much better. So it's only 22 grams, and it magnetically sticks or clips on. So what you do is, right, you just click, you have your meeting, you click to stop, and that's actually that. No app, no phone, no fiddling around. What it does is it transcribes everything. It identifies speakers. It creates structured notes with action items and key takeaways, all that stuff. And even better, you can actually ask AI across all of your notes, which means no like spending ages trying to find like that note that you think you made last week, but you can't find it. No, you can just ask it and I'll go and get it. But as good as all that is, it's not actually
Actually, that's a very useful technology, actually.
thing. My favorite thing is this. Not typing during a meeting, not being on a computer or a phone, means it can be a real creative meeting. One that's high quality, not just some corpo check-in where we're all just there taking some notes just for the point. And not just for meetings. Say an idea strikes. Well, I just pull out my note pin, I click, I speak, I click, I pocket it again. And that's it, done. My idea or my note is captured. I don't need to pick up my phone, unlock it, do anything like that. And even better, I can save you a bunch of money. So you can get your note pin at the link down below.
Not bad.
If you use code NEWS22, you'll get
Actually, an actual
22%
useful
off.
actual
You'll also get
piece of
300
hardware,
minutes free
actually.
transcription monthly. As for Anthem then, look. Anthem failed. Its developers were then
True.
not allowed to save it with the Anthem Next project.
I remember back then that they said that they were going to do DLC and like expansions and stuff like that, and re-innovate Anthem, or they were going to make basically like Anthem 2, you know? Do you guys remember that? You guys remember that they were going to do that stuff? Man. Times must be tough, huh? Times must be tough for Anthem 2, huh?
It just seemingly didn't make sense for the company to take on that risk. And of course, there aren't crowds of people waiting to play this game. But here's why I think it does matter. Number one, a very core principle, people paid for this game. And
True.
to the Stop Killing Games movement, that is very much...
But even then, people were afraid to play this on console because it was bricking consoles. Like, literally. Like, straight up. Like, who wants to play a game that literally bricks your entire console itself? Like, who wants that? Like, generally. Nobody wants that, you know?
much cutting to the core of their principle of buying a product versus having a license. And that's the debate that's animated the entire consumer movement. Now, on a purely consumer level, you bought a game with money. This is, again, us just putting terms of service and all that aside. A person feels like they put some money away and then they got a game for that, and now that game is being taken away. But here's the thing, people's worries actually go beyond just the consumer side of things. As an example, Anthem has, to some people, pretty incredible mech flying gameplay. There were cool bits of Anthem, it just obviously was far less than the sum of its parts. Now, I think it's fair to say...
It was a pretty generic looter shooter game. Like, it had like pretty very generic like missions and shit like that, and the story was kind of like, you know, and it's just kind of like pretty much it. This was basically trying to compete against Destiny 1, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this was basically like this was trying to compete with Destiny 1, but it would, of course, it did very mid. So
say that future developers should be able to learn.
Was it Destiny 2 during the time of it? I don't remember. When did Destiny 2 came out? I don't really remember. And apparently this game has been out for like 7 years, apparently. Let me see. 2019. Okay. Ah, 2017. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought Destiny 2 came out a little bit more later, to be honest.
Learn from
I always do
Anthem
my research, at
by
least, you know?
actually playing it, right? By
I
seeing
thought it was Destiny 1. That's well, actually, no, I am correct, because the only reason why is because, remember, game development takes a while. So depending how long this game was in development, it was probably during the Destiny 1 phase that they were trying to compete, but then they announced Destiny 2 because the Bungie team was working on Destiny 2 already later on in production. So technically it was for the Destiny 1 thing, and then they announced Destiny 2 afterwards. So
how that feels. Because
I forgot, right? Because game development takes a couple years depending how long this game was being made for. That's the reason why. So
to make that type of game, playing Anthem for reference would help. That's quite literally how people think about designing games. You will often find references to see if your idea has been
a lot of people said that the flying like mechanic or so in this game was actually really good. That's the whole positive thing, is what I've been hearing most of the time.
Before. Are there
the Earthbound situation? No, I have not heard about Earthbound in a while.
From? It's progress like that, being able to stand on the shoulders of past designers, that helps push the industry forward. And of course,
you know what this game kind of reminds me of? It kind of does remind me a little bit of The First Descendant. That's what it reminds me of.
Better games actually come out. So Anthem not being playable somehow is obviously bad. And in that way, we would all benefit from Anthem being playable in some way. Just that EA probably wouldn't. Just about nothing today would impact their bottom line in a real positive way. The other side of Anthem is obviously historical. I mean, if you want to understand BioWare's current state as a company, Anthem tells that story. So it is, I think, the perfect example of why this legislative initiative has quite a point to it. But
all right, I'm gonna say it here. I'm just gonna say it here. They should have made a female robot with like good massive curves and a good ass. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying they should have done it, you know? They should have made a robot with like literally with like actual like ass and like straight up with sexy curves. I'm just saying, you know, that would have definitely pulled in a few people staring at that, you know, especially this.
The perfect example of why this legislative initiative has quite a point to it. But it does
so imagine like pulling this here,
current state
this here specifically, and just imagine your robot that you're in it with those booty cheeks right here. Come on, man. Like, honestly. Have you seen the Ember heirloom skin? No, I have not. But yeah, this is pretty much like they could have done that, you know. I'm just saying, you know. Like, I'm just saying, like, hey, man, I'm the only one who thinks about, like, the actual gamers, okay? All right? Because I'm also a gamer itself, you know? That's the reason why.
As described in the FAQ, quote, Anthem was designed to be an online-only title, so once servers go offline, the game will no longer be playable. So, yeah, it's a little bit of the Crew-like situation. That's it. Game's gone.
Yeah, plus also this is like a single-player game, too, as well. So it's not really like an online multiplayer game. It's a single-player game.
A fairly obvious position, saying, why the hell is there not an offline mode so I can just play this game free from your servers? Well, here's the thing. The disasters of Anthem's
yeah, to be honest, like, I would have played this game, you know, offline. Like, I would actually have given it a try for, like, a stream or so to try out Anthem to see what went wrong and everything like that. But also, like, take the bits that are, like, good about the game. You know, like, some specific mechanics and, like, some specific stuff. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll probably incorporate it in, like, my game itself in the future, you know? Alright, search up the Marshall Machine Maiden when this video is over. I think you'll like it. Yeah, sure, of course. We'll take a look at this stuff.
And trust me, this is building to quite a point and something you almost certainly did not know about this game. So, the disasters are well recorded. We know BioWare faced loads of difficulties and also EA induced problems. We do not need to rehash all of that, so we won't. But here's where there is a
Gonna
point.
crash every 10
Staff
minutes.
were desperately trying to make a game that even came together in any like final shippable state. So of course they were not.
I bet you in some alternative universe, like in a different timeline from your guys' dimension or so, Anthem is actually a really good game and is probably still alive to this day. Like an actual good game. I can definitely see that.
Not thinking about preserving something that was already far up.
Sadly,
shit
we
creek
got
and
this
had not
timeline
launched
pretty
yet.
much, yeah.
It's not like EA would give a shit at that stage.
Yeah, and Anthem dethrones Destiny or so, or like basically like, or Destiny starts fighting back and makes their stuff better, because we all know Destiny right now is not doing very well. So I bet you in that specific timeline, Anthem is actually like really good and it's still alive to this day. And probably a second Anthem probably must have been announced around this time. And then, you know, Destiny would be the competitor against Anthem, and Warframe would also be, you know, the competitor in that specific timeline. So
They, funnily enough, just want a game that they can publish, and on an institutional level, they're not that keen.
and then all three companies are actually fighting for your guys' attention and actually making good content. Crazy, isn't it? Huh? Crazy.
On preservation.
Wild to see
obviously,
that.
Imagine running a cost-benefit analysis on that. Someone must have, though, and it's probably why the EA graveyard looks the way that it does. But we will return to this point, because
I don't mind microtransactions, just overpriced microtransactions is what I don't like. Like the Call of Duty, you know? That's basically is what I like, you know? That's not what I don't like.
what Stop Killing Games is talking about is
They just have to be
legal
reasonably
compliance.
priced.
And you'll see an example soon of legal compliance that even with all of the bullshit facing Anthem development, that they did actually meet. So as it turns out, if you want to see EA's graveyard, it's real easy. They keep a meticulous
Jesus,
record
$50
of
for a
every game
DLC?
with suspended online
Eh.
services, where basically after 2013, every closure is actually documented. You can see the date, the platform, sometimes even specific territories. They've got a little
Because I know for a fact that there's some microtransactions that they change or so, where like they literally barely change anything. And they like charge you for like, you know, $5, $10, $15 or something like that. Like if they change the color or so of like, you know, or they put it in a battle pass or something for like changing a different color skin. At least add a little bit more to it instead of just color swapping, instead of just adding like from blue to red, but then charge the red skin. I'm like, just add a little something to it, you know? Like just like, I don't know, add like a etching design into it, or like I don't know, wood marks on it, or like anything, or like veins or something, like bloody veins or something in that specific like red color, like, you know, thing itself, you know? I don't know, something, you know? Like you don't even have to go crazy. Like I'm talking about like I'm not even talking about like the transforming like skins or so, like they transform, you know, and they do crazy animations and all that other stuff. I'm just talking about like simple, like just something simple to it, you know? And then be like, yeah, just charge it for like $1 or something, or like, you know, $2, you know, like for the color red, and then add like wood graving designs in it. There you go, $1. There you go, $1. Or put a, like literally I can literally recreate the bacon skin from Call of Duty, from Black Ops 2. Literally grab a PNG of bacon, get the gun, multiply the bacon, and just layer it on top of it, and there you go. You have the bacon gun skin back again from Black Ops 2. It will only take you like 5 minutes to do it. Like honestly, it's like literally Control copy, Control V, paste, align it, slap it. There you go. You're good.
For when
I'm just
third-party
saying.
game leaves EA Play, they list future closures. I mean, here's the Anthem one, and we even see Madden 22 is going to be turned off this October. So thinking about this, you might wonder, well, why do these shutdowns happen? It's actually because EA does have a plan for end of life with their games. It's just not the plan that Stop Killing Games is hoping for. They set fairly clear conditions in their online service shutdown terms. Like, you can read them. And essentially, it's going to all be about cost. Whenever a game drops below 1% of peak online players across all EA titles, they just can't justify the server costs anymore. And sure, you could work around that to keep the game, like, preserved, but I mean, how would they justify that from a financial basis? Who's going to be buying Madden 22 or Anthem? So, in a way, it is actually understandable. Thinking about them and really what
You know, I would probably buy Anthem just to try it out offline or so, you know?
their incentives are. And that's when
So Naka needs to be the
the
director of a game studio.
Well, what value are
Bro,
we...
like I've played so many different types of video games. Like I have so much knowledge of certain video games. And then I have certain friends or so who are in the video game industry who are in studios, right? That actually are working on games and stuff like that. So I do know, like, I don't know the name of the titles, right? But I do know what they're working on, or like they give me like aspects behind the scene or so of like what's going on behind the scene. They kind of give me the ropes. They kind of give me like, oh, this is how it's done. This is how this works, and this is how that works, and everything like that. It's kind of like, oh, okay, all right, that's completely okay. I could like basically learning how the water current flows, basically, because then that specific knowledge or so I can take it once I learn, once I make my own studio, of course. Granted, am I going to be an expert? No, of course I'm not going to be an expert. I'm a jack of all trades, I know a lot of things, but I'm not a master at any of it,
really delivering to our players as measured by players actually playing, because surely if a player is playing something, that's a sign that they value it. Okay, so nobody's playing, why would we even bother? Whereas, of course,
I just absorb certain
games,
information. That's about it.
Principle of what ownership means, the principle of preservation. So really,
it was the same year as Anthem, was it?
It's probably not even just about like revenue or costs.
Yeah, I know certain, I know what, because I hang out with guy friends, right? And they know specifically, I know what they want. We always talk about stuff about games, and they also speak their own two opinions about oh, I wish they would have done this better, or I wish they would have done this and that, so what's better, being the best at one thing or being a jack of all trades? Being a jack of all trades is always better, that's the only thing, you can be a master at one thing, but then the problem is you won't know about another subject. You're not a master at that specific subject, you're not going to know anything about that subject, but you're an expert at your craft though, which is a lot of respect, of course. But being able to learn a wide variety of tools in a wide variety of just having that specific mindset of having a wide variety view on things can make you go a little bit more further, and then you slowly stack up more information in those specific departments, even though you may know a little bit about it, but then you'll start learning more in every specific area, after learning oh yeah, I know about this, and then you start learning from someone who does know. So
it's just about how many active customers they would inconvenience by shutting something down, and likely
for me specifically, I'm I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm well knowledge when it comes to art stuff, art designs and character designs and stuff like that. I wouldn't say master at it, but I'm well knowledge in it. Just artistic style as well, what artistic style looks can last you a while or so, that looks really good, it ages like fine wine and everything like that. And then soundtracks is what I'm I listen, because I listen to a lot of music or so, and I find what specific thing fits for certain aspects. And then storytelling, I've done storytelling for a while or so back then, and that's kind of one of my favorite things to do, is to create worlds. I carefully create worlds. I create the characters. I carefully create the characters themselves to make sure the characters fit in the specific setting for that specific world in general. It's not I'm going to plug in just a random LGBT, character that doesn't really fit in the actual story complex. It's not I'm going to be, forced DEI stuff, so. Take care, Hazu. Be safe. And it's pretty much, that's kind of basically it, will I incorporate a lesbian? Will I incorporate a gay person? Yeah, of course, but it's not going to be forced, the way how most other things are, especially the stereotypical kind of things that they do or so. I personally would try to shine away from that, unless it's for comedic purposes. that's about it. Like if it's a comedic character that he's like self-aware about it, then that's a different story, you know. But LGBT stuff are hot right now. Okay, buddy. Imagine making characters that has a personality beyond their genitals or who they want to fuck. Yeah, I know. That's like basically, you know. How about a fantasy world of Futanaris? That's a hentai story. That's not even a real story.
The complexity of running loads of different simultaneous services. They probably want to shut things down
But
whenever
I would still smash though, 100%.
they can. So how do we breach this gap between principle and, I suppose, reality as EA thinks it through? Well, I've got a quote for you, and it's this: "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." It's a Charlie Munger quote, and it's a solid one. Look here, EA has got no real incentive. There is no carrot to eat. So, of course, the outcome is no serious preservation. There's no carrot. What Stop Killing Games wishes to do is to
In
bring
God
a
Hand?
stick.
I don't think I've
Part of
seen
that is
God
compiling
Hand.
this naughty list of over 1,000 games that require an internet connection for at least some sort of online feature. Of them, 36% are at risk with official servers but no public shutdown plan. 19% are fan preserved, like as an example, the private launchers of Lawbreakers. Yes, people are still playing Lawbreakers in current year, kind of.
People are still playing Lawbreakers? No way, dude. That's crazy. That'd be pretty cool to test out Lawbreakers, actually. That'd be a wild game just to see that, how the gameplay was that specific game.
Kind of cool. 4% are developer preserved, an example being Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, which is kind of neat because Nintendo basically made it standalone and re-released it as Pocket Camp Complete. The other 37%, though, those are dead, and that is where...
You know which game I want to come back, that I want to come back from the dead or so? It's not technically, the game is not dead. It's only dead in the global side, but it's not dead in the Japanese side, is the Atelier, what's her name? The Atelier game, the Polar Express one, or whatever it's called. What's it called? I was gonna say Ryza, but it's not Ryza. It's been such a while since I've seen this game. Let me see. It is called, yes, Atelier Wrestleriana. I want this game to have an offline mode for the global side because I actually enjoyed this game quite a lot, actually. So the gacha game, the actual gacha game that came out on the global side, it's dead. It's completely dead. And I would actually like to have an offline mode for that one. So even if the story is not going to be completed whatsoever, I would still like to have it, you know. It's still going on in the Japanese side, but I wish it would still, you know, I wish there was an offline mode for, you know, for this game, because it's a single player game. That's the reason why there's no multiplayer. It's online service. That's why it's online service. But like, there's no multiplayer, like, you know, like fighting other people in PvP or anything like that. It's all PvE. So yeah.
Anthem is going to be going. But what if it didn't? Let's think about incentives and punishment. Okay, so Anthem was designed as a live service looter shooter, and that's the kind of game that needs online elements. Things like your matchmaking, progression tracking, info sharing, all that stuff that is essential. And it's not like live service is inherently bad. I think it can be actually exceptional. And not just MMOs, you got the likes of Warframe, right? Games that people absolutely love. And there are good reasons for basically a lot of stuff being done in the server. Take Anthem's enemy scaling, so it adjusts difficulty based on connected players in each expedition. The solo play stuff is just handled within that system. There is no parallel system for solo play needed because it's all one thing. That might also mean perhaps no nightmares migrating people between solo and a group if they're basically running on a different backend in a way. And that could also help keep, I don't know, like the integrity of your online stuff. I guess you could just say from a development perspective, it makes sense. It is more cost controlled to develop that way. But obviously, it doesn't really consider end of life, does it? But the reason why, and this is what I was building up, is because it's not required to. But there are other requirements, legal requirements. As an example, BioWare had to comply with laws like the American 21st
Thank you for the
Century
follow.
Communications and Video Accessibility Act. the CVAA. Basically, this thing mandates that VoIP systems should be accessible to all users, which essentially means there's got to be speech to text, with that being required to help deaf users. Now, this actually, for this game, hurt the development of some other features, like regular text chat, because essentially when developing that feature set, speech to text stuff working right had to take precedence. The reason why is very simple. It was legally required. You could make a principled argument that EA should do a feature like that they should make it accessible in that particular way, because it's a good thing to do. But if you actually want EA to do it, well, the legal stick certainly helps. Now, if a maximalist read of the Stop Killing Games objectives was to be enforced by law, it obviously would substantially change how certain types of games are made. Now, yes, should note, change in EU law or its interpretation is not guaranteed here, and we'll come back to that and the likelihoods of things in a deep dive video. But this example does actually show perfectly why this stuff all matters. As an example, if consumer law was to change in the Stop Killing Games direction, well, could that force the next Anthem's developers, whatever that game may be, to plan for server shutdowns from the outset? If so, they'd have to ask some questions. Can level scaling work offline? How do those systems play together? How does a single
it would technically, like, you can probably make it work somehow, but the problem is like, you know, I don't really know the knowledge specifically for this, but I doubt, you know, I'm not throwing shade or anything like that, but remember the story that I told you about certain developers taking super long for coding, for coding something super simple that'll take them at least like 2 weeks or so, and the guy can do it, you know, by lunch, you know, like in basically like half a day he can do it. There's a difference in, like, you know, I guess like you could say like the junior developers. I just feel like they've never, like, I feel like they don't teach the at least the new generation junior developers and stuff like that, like the actual importance of like efficiency, you know? I feel like that's what basically is. I don't know what really happens in those schools specifically, so I can't really say my own two opinions. I don't know anybody who went to those specific schools, right? I wish I would love to, you know, get in contact with some of them or so that has that, because it'd be pretty nice to just know the information behind the scenes. But like in general, it's just like the problem is like a lot of specific, you know, people or junior developers are not very well versed. And then now we're in a day and age where like all of the old developers are not there anymore. So it's a lot of new junior developers that don't really have too much knowledge, don't have a little bit too much grasp, or did not learn how to do these certain things, you know? Maybe they never taught them, or they never went in depth in that. I'm not too sure. Like I said, I don't know what happens behind the scenes when it comes to the schools for those, in, you know, those specific typical fields. But I'd be very curious if, like, you know, did they or did they not teach them, you know? Yeah, that's the one thing. I wish it would pass down some of that, like some of the techniques, some of the shortcuts, and like some stuff passing down to like the new younger devs, and then they can absorb that information and then take it into their work field and still keep up with, you know, the efficiency and everything like that, you know?
single player person,
Gaming industry is basically an FFA. I don't even know what FFA stands for.
Cheating or competitive imbalance. Should fully single player just work 100% without the internet? And how do we architect this?
Free for all?
Those would become mandatory
a little bit weird.
considerations, not just something to think about because it's interesting and perhaps a good thing to do. So it's here then that we actually understand Stop Killing Games a bit more properly, because I think if you're saying, listen, Stop Killing Games is just a good thing, it's just a bunch of developer nerds who are saying that this would cost more money, that, you know, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Then no, not really. A maximalist version of Stop Killing Games absolutely would change how these games are made. The point is the people advocate.
It would be cool, like future games or so that are like online has an offline switch, you know, like so that like when their, you know, when their time comes or so where they have to turn off the online service for these games, they can just flick a switch and it'll be offline, and you can still have the game itself. Like, it's still pretty cool because then you can go back and play it on your own free time and be like, you know, relive the memories and be like, yeah, I remember this, or like, oh, I remember that raid right there where I did it with my friends and everything, you know. It's just, you know, it's just kind of nice to go back, you know.
Advocating think that, well, that's actually worth it, that this won't be easy, that it won't be free, but that it is worth it, and that is why they are trying to push the initiative as hard as they are. And
Plus, also, if you think about it specifically too as well, like, just think about it in the perspective of business, like on the business side perspective point of view, right? Like, you're trying to tell them, right, specifically, if we make an offline mode for this game, once we kill the online mode, and people who don't have the game, they want to try out the game, they can still buy it, and we can still earn money, revenue from it. I'm just saying, you know? I'm just saying.
built into that position is an implicit understanding that development resources are development resources, so they will shift.
Because even then, if I ever make an online game, like in the future, right? If I make an online game with, like, you know, for like for multiplayer stuff, right? Like, I would definitely like try to find a way or so to make sure, you know, let's say for example in the future, you know, the game is like, you know, we finished the content for the game, you know, and everything. Now the game is kind of like slowing down, like there's this more smaller like population or so. I would try to find a way or so. Well, even like before like the development or so, talk to my like development team and be like asking, okay, is there a way specifically that we can have like an offline mode for this game preparation just in case? Like, I'm already thinking like far ahead or so before, you know, before even the process of making games.
From other features. And that will mean that some existing pipelines might break. I mean, hell, often entire middleware industries crop up to solve compliance issues like this. But of course, if that middleware doesn't exist, then, well, you know, dev time is dev time, and it'll probably take a good bit more. And the reason why I brought up the Anthem text chat is that shows us dev time spent on compliance will, in this case, be compliant, but may not optimize for your personal preferred outcome. You could argue that text-to-speech is an extremely niche thing as compared to the overall quality of your text chat experience, but that doesn't really matter because they have to be legally compliant. That forces their action. It forces them to reallocate their development resources, and in this case, seemingly change the architecture of how they handled their text stuff. So, this is not something that is about being objectively correct because our principle is right, and because our principle is right, it's right and we should do the thing. No, this is us as adults talking about trade-offs. So, which do you value more? Substantial end-of-life planning and implementation, or whatever else any additional dev time could go into if that stuff is not being prioritized? That's the question, and a damn well-timed one, because Anthem proves something very important. Number one, that the discussion over stop killing games is actually relevant, that it's good that we're talking about that, but more pragmatically, it proves that even in messy development hell shit show situations, the developer will meet legal compliance. They did that with text-to-speech. Would they do that for end-of-life support? And speaking of life support, God, this is going to be so grim. Well, you know what? Microsoft just sort of put a whole bunch of things in life support, and anything that was in life support, they pulled the plug.
That was pretty interesting. That was a good video, to be honest. I enjoyed that actually. So, like, Stop Killing Games basically won, you know, and it's pretty interesting. If you buy any other product that's defective, you get a refund. Why not? Why not video games? That's true. That's true. Or at least get partial money back in return, you know. But I think personally, like, they should make an offline mode for some of these games, you know, just to, you know, it's pretty nice for game preservation, you know, and then going down the line or so to like teaching, you know, the younger generation, you know, what we played back then instead of just watching a YouTube video. They can actually, like, you know, you'll probably see like many like video essays about like the certain video games and be like, maybe you'll hear someone who said, yeah, my dad used to play this game back in like, you know, 2010 or so, you know, like some kid making a YouTube video and be like, this game was in its prime or so back then, you know, my dad would always tell me all of this and all this on all this other stuff and blah blah blah, you know. It'd be pretty nice, you know. It'd be something a little bit more in more in a happier tone to see more of that specific like certain games come. And then you'll see like some of the older audiences be like, yeah, I remember that game back in the 2010s. Yeah, you know, that was a good game, you know, or whatever, you know, era of the year, you know. So but the problem is like, you know, these games that are like online services that don't have an offline mode or like in order that said. My dad used to play Usami, the anime horse girl racing game. It's like, yeah, this is his like SSS tier horse, you know. Haru, his SS tier. He got that bitch winning races left and right after losing 2,000 times. Anyways, yeah. My daddy spent my college money on Genshin Impact. Yeah, that would be pretty hilarious, to be honest. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. Yeah, overall, like, these are the kind of things that I always think about or so when it comes to like video games in general, you know? Like I always have things thinking behind the mind or so when like, okay, when I open up my game studio, what am I gonna do, you know? So like even like I would like to like collaborate with like one of my friends who's like in the video game industry, right? I would love to collaborate with him on a game, you know, just kind of like sit down and like talk about like, okay, I'd be like, hey, I want to make a video game, but I want to collab with you on this game, you know, like I want to like let's create something together, you know. That's the thing itself, you know. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much it. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. Yeah, one day I'll make a video game for all my community members. One day. I want you guys to be proud, you know? Be like, yeah, that's my mom there. That's my mom's game right there. She put so much time into it. Don't worry, I'll carefully craft the world for you guys. But yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And,